The movie opens with a young woman standing by the side of a quiet road, waiting for someone. She reveals that she is on her way to meet her boyfriend's parents for the very first time, a meeting that comes after only a few weeks of dating. As she prepares for this journey, she reflects on how well she thinks she knows him and feels a deep, inexplicable connection, one that fills her with both excitement and apprehension. Yet, despite the seemingly smooth exterior of their relationship, she admits, almost to herself, that she has been contemplating ending things, a thought that hangs uneasily beneath the surface. As the story unfolds, we follow her as she navigates a series of increasingly strange and emotional events, starting from the moment they arrive at his parents' home. Her boyfriend, Jack, suggests stopping along the way, hinting at concerns for his mother's health and perhaps implying that a meal may await them. The young woman, eager and anxious, expresses her excitement about meeting his parents. Their conversation soon drifts to poetry, and she mentions William Wordsworth, admitting she has never read his works. Jack shares that Wordsworth had written many poems for a young woman named Lucy, a revelation that delights her as she realizes they even share the same name. Yet there is an underlying darkness. Lucy, the poet's muse, had died young, a reminder of life's fragility. The narrative then shifts in tone as we glimpse Jack alone in his routine. He is an older man who works as a janitor at a high school, a life far removed from the energy of his young companion. We see him performing mundane tasks while a quiet show plays in the background, and yet the story continues to blend memories, imagination, and reality in a disorienting but compelling manner. Meanwhile, the young woman shares intimate details about her life, her hopes, and her uncertainties. She becomes fascinated by a poem Jack reads to her, marveling at its depth and feeling as if it reflects her own experiences. Tension subtly builds as small arguments surface between them, revealing differences in their worldview. The young woman believes that all living beings, from viruses to humans, strive to survive, while Jack counters with a darker perspective, suggesting that some creatures, and perhaps some people, seek self-destruction. These conversations hint at deeper philosophical undercurrents that shape the film's unsettling atmosphere. The next day, they arrive at his parents' home. Though his mother appears weak and unwell, they greet each other politely, yet the young woman instinctively avoids entering the house immediately, wandering around the surrounding area instead. Jack shows her familiar corners of the home, revealing stories of past events and peculiar occurrences, including the death of farm animals and strange infestations. Inside, Jack repeatedly calls for his parents, and eventually, they descend the stairs, bringing with them a sense of both anticipation and unease. In the cold, quiet space, the two share small gestures of intimacy, such as exchanging slippers, waiting together, and navigating an environment that feels at once familiar and disturbingly off-kilter. As the story progresses, it becomes clear that Jack's parents are strangely absent, adding to the unsettling atmosphere of the home. The young woman, Lucy, remarks how the house reminds her of her own childhood home, a place she remembers with a mix of nostalgia and unease. Hours pass, and Lucy begins to feel increasingly anxious that Jack's parents have yet to appear. Jack reassures her that he informed them of their visit, but his calm explanation does little to settle her nerves. Curiosity and apprehension push Lucy to ask about the basement, to which Jack responds that it contains nothing of significance, just old, unused items. He mentions, almost offhandedly, that he dislikes the basement, and an odd expression crosses his face, hinting at a hidden tension. Lucy attempts to enter the basement but is stopped by Jack, noticing faint, unusual stains near the doorway. Jack explains that the markings were made by their dog, a casual remark that does little to ease her growing sense of disquiet. Moments later, Jack's parents finally appear, greeting them warmly, though there is something off about their interactions. They address Lucy as Louisa, creating a subtle dissonance that unsettles her. Though affection is shown, there is a strange distance between Jack and his parents, suggesting that their relationships are more formal than intimate. Even when shaking hands with his father, Jack seems disconnected, as if this meeting is more about appearances than genuine family connection. The next day, the trio sits at the dining table where Jack's mother serves dinner, an attempt at domestic normalcy that feels slightly surreal. Lucy learns that Jack is a painter, though earlier she had understood him to be a poet, which adds to the confusing layers of his identity. She shares her own artistic pursuits, showing some of her paintings on her phone, while Jack interrupts her, curbing her attempts to express herself fully. Their conversation turns to academics, revealing that Jack is a physicist, which contrasts sharply with the artistic and personal impressions she had of him, deepening the sense of ambiguity. During dinner, Jack's mother begins recounting their first meeting, though the details seem mismatched with the ages of his parents, who appear unnaturally young in these recollections, further blurring the line between memory and imagination. Meanwhile, The older Jack is shown watching a TV program where a boy expresses love for a waitress at a hotel, a scene mirroring themes of desire, rejection, and consequence that resonate throughout the story. Later, Lucy shares a childhood photograph of herself, attempting to connect through memory and identity, but Jack responds with a detached remark, revealing the emotional distance that persists between them. Outside, the storm intensifies, adding to the growing sense of foreboding, as Lucy observes strange figures and shadows moving through the house, leaving her with an increasing feeling that reality itself is shifting. The tension in the story escalates as Lucy explores the house, guided by an uneasy mix of curiosity and apprehension. She enters a room that once belonged to Jack's childhood, a space filled with remnants of toys and books that evoke memories of a distant past. Her eyes fall upon a book by William Wordsworth, and within its pages, she discovers a poem, the same one Jack had recited to her in the car earlier. Confusion washes over her. How could she have known this poem already, as if some invisible thread connected her knowledge to Jack's memories? At that moment, Jack's parents appear once again, this time looking older, frailer, and burdened by the weight of time. Jack tends to his aging mother, who is now confined to a wheelchair, highlighting the stark passage of years that contrasts sharply with their earlier, more youthful appearance. Lucy watches as Jack carefully feeds his mother, preparing to leave, while outside, the storm intensifies. Snow begins to accumulate on the car, creating a visual metaphor for the cold and disorientation permeating the film. Lucy continues to explore, moving from room to room, discovering objects and paintings that blur the line between reality and memory. She notices a shirt among the scattered clothes marked with the letter R, hinting at connections between Jack, his parents, and the mysterious past. Among these items, she finds paintings that she had previously shown to Jack's parents, believing them to be her own work, but each piece bears Jack's name instead. The eerie realization unsettles her further, as if the boundaries between her identity and Jack's life are dissolving. A phone call interrupts her thoughts. This time, a gruff, unfamiliar voice speaks to her, adding to the mounting sense of unease. Lucy steps outside the basement to discover that Jack's mother has passed away, leaving Jack to guide her through the snow-covered driveway. As they prepare to leave, they discuss the modern neglect of the elderly, and Jack offers a grim observation. Many children today see their parents as adversaries, a perspective he encounters daily at school. Lucy, seeking a moment of normalcy, suggests visiting an ice cream parlor to escape the cold, but Jack refuses, his detachment a stark contrast to her desire for simple pleasures. Eventually, Jack insists on taking her to his high school, a place that shaped every day of his life. As Lucy arrives, she notices a hand, old, worn, and trembling, lifting ice cream tubs from a truck, a small but striking reminder of the passage of time and the fragility of human existence. Inside the school, Lucy searches for Jack among the empty corridors, passing by dancing students frozen in memory, and the eerie presence of the same older janitor who seems to inhabit the space in multiple forms. The disorientation grows, blurring past, present, and memory into a surreal, haunting tapestry that mirrors Lucy's own unraveling sense of reality. As the night unfolds, Jack is seen alone in the house, his actions increasingly surreal and unsettling. He spends hours inside, going through old possessions and wandering the empty rooms, until he encounters a shocking sight outside his vehicle, a decaying body of a calf, covered in crawling insects. This grotesque image follows him into the school, reinforcing the film's pervasive atmosphere of disorientation and dread. In the climactic final scenes, we glimpse Jack receiving a Nobel Prize, performing before an audience while Lucy sits among the crowd, blurring the boundaries between reality and memory, past and present. Outside, the world is buried under snow, the car entirely covered, leaving a haunting final visual that lingers long after the screen goes dark. By now, it becomes clear that many questions the audience might have are deliberately left unanswered. The narrative unfolds primarily through Lucy's perspective, but even her observations are unreliable. The young woman who appears as Jack's girlfriend is, in reality, a figment of his imagination, an amalgamation of memories, desires, and regrets. Her name shifts repeatedly throughout the film, from Lucy to Louisa, reflecting the instability of identity within Jack's mind. Her personality and even her profession change, from poet to painter, waitress to artist, yet all her supposed creations are actually Jack's. The poem she recites, the paintings she shows to Jack's parents, even the childhood memories she recounts, all originate from Jack himself. The story's timeline is equally fluid. Although the events appear to unfold over a single day, they compress decades of Jack's life. The changing clothing, the aging of his parents, and the surreal shifts in setting hint at years of psychological struggle, all condensed into the film's limited runtime. The high school, the ice cream parlor, and the empty corridors are stages for Jack's reflections on youth, memory, and lost opportunities. The janitor Lucy sees at school is Jack himself, aged and broken, wandering through spaces that are both familiar and impossible. The recurring phone calls from Lucy are, in fact, his own conscience, echoing back fragments of his desires and guilt. Ultimately, I'm Thinking of Ending Things is a meditation on identity, regret, and the passage of time. The film blurs reality and imagination, creating a psychological labyrinth where Jack and his imagined girlfriend are inseparable, two sides of the same consciousness. By exploring memory, fantasy, and mortality, the narrative reveals a man grappling with his own loneliness and the choices he never made. Every detail, from the shifting names to the paintings and poems, is a piece of Jack's fractured psyche. The final imagery of snow-covered vehicles and silent, empty spaces underscores the isolation that defines his life, leaving the audience to ponder the boundaries between reality, memory, and imagination. In fact, the young Jack is, in reality, just a figment of the old man's imagination, a representation of his own past and regrets. Turning to Jack's parents, the truth becomes clear: they are long deceased. The old man is now left to care for the memory of his mother, highlighting the stark reality of his isolation. His life has been defined by unfulfilled desires and unexpressed emotions. He never confessed his love to the girl he cared for, never formed lasting connections, and now faces profound loneliness in his final years. This unbearable solitude drives him to contemplate suicide, sitting through freezing nights in hypothermia-inducing cold, ultimately succumbing to the harsh conditions. Throughout the film, Lucy's presence, Jack's imagined girlfriend, represents the connection he longed for but never achieved. In scenes where the old Jack encounters her, it becomes evident that she has never actually met him. All interactions exist solely within his mind. Her imagined opinions, memories, and emotions are projections of his own desires and regrets. The film conveys Jack's inner turmoil and the slow unraveling of his psyche, showing how he grapples with the impossibility of happiness and the inevitability of death. Even seemingly joyful moments, such as a dance between two students in the high school corridors, take on a symbolic meaning. They represent the romance, joy, and human connection that Jack never experienced in his own life. Instead, his existence has been consumed by sorrow and isolation. The recurring imagery of decaying bodies and crawling insects mirrors the relentless gnawing of loneliness and despair in his mind. The final dream sequences, in which Jack imagines receiving awards and recognition on a stage, serve as bittersweet fantasies of a life he never lived. These moments reveal his deep yearning for achievement, acceptance, and connection, a life that, in reality, remained unfulfilled. Ultimately, Jack's condition can be interpreted as a form of dissociative identity disorder, reflected in his multiple imagined personas, including Lucy. He cannot reconcile his desire for companionship with the reality of his solitude, and the hallucinations allow him to explore what might have been without ever truly escaping his isolation. Through this psychological lens, the film examines themes of regret, memory, identity, and mortality. In the end, Jack's choice to end his life is presented as the culmination of decades of loneliness, unexpressed emotion, and unresolved conflict.